I'm not good at many things, but I can clap. That's why they call me the clap. Hey, welcome to episode 92 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick. I'm here with Severn.
Yo.
And Blake.
Hey.
And special guest Jonathan. Welcome back.
Hey.
How's it
Thanks for having
going?
me. Oh, it's going all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's been an interesting week for gamers.
Yeah. There's been some controversy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last podcast we talked about Red Dead Redemption a fair bit.
You want to hear about the latest Red Dead controversy?
Sure, hit me.
Did you know about this, Jonathan?
I don't know.
They don't have HDR. It's like a dumb SDR conversion to 10-bit. Do you know about this?
I'd not heard about this controversy.
Okay.
So you're saying that then earlier in the pipeline they're not like rendering 10-bit and they do like a
yeah, it's just 8-bit.
right.
And then they just scale it up to 10-bit.
I mean, you can get away with that in some cases. Like you can, it does help a little bit, depending on where you do it in the pipeline.
It doesn't in this case because it just pushes black levels up.
Okay.
And so they're kind of grey. And it
I see.
sucks, dude.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Because you've got
Yeah, because I thought, I was
greatest
under the
of
impression
right?
that it was good.
Right.
So are you saying that this game sucks now?
It's a little, well, the thing is my TV handles HDR pretty well. So it's
Right.
it's still cool
Right.
to look at.
Okay.
It sucks, but it's still great.
Yeah. Well, I was disappointed because I expected it.
So
to
I mean,
have
did
HDR.
they say it supported HDR? Like, was that a thing?
I don't know.
Because like, if they didn't, then like, what are you complaining about? Kind
I
of thing.
think
You know, it's like-
I think Severn was just like, this game is going
I
to be
guess
the
I
best,
just
so it'll
expected it.
support
Okay.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
So we usually talk about what we've been playing.
Yep.
I can guess, at least Severn, what you've been playing.
Yeah. I've been on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been playing Path of Exile, right?
No, not very much.
Okay. So you've been playing Red Dead. Yep. Jonathan, you've been playing a little bit of Red Dead.
I did, but not that much. I kind of hated it. That's the problem. Like, I mean, and to be fair, I kind of thought I would hate it before I bought it, and that might have influenced me somewhat. But
Why?
I still bought it anyway because it's kind of like a big tentpole game, you know,
Right.
like in the game industry, and like everyone was giving it like crazily high reviews, and so I was like, you know, I really should play this. But honestly, like open world games are not really my thing.
Yeah.
And this kind of was like the things I don't like about open world games quite a lot. So, you know, like the directionlessness, the like random upkeep you have to do for things, like in terms of like clean your gun and your horse and your like eat food and like all that sort of stuff
Yep.
is just like not me at all.
Right. Now you
Um,
played Zelda, which
yes,
has some random
It
upkeep in that,
does
like
have
the
a
weapons
little
break.
bit, but yet somehow it kind of didn't feel the same. I mean, really, okay, but hang on a second. What was the upkeep in Zelda? Really? I guess it was cooking. Is that like? I mean,
I would have said more like the weapons.
yeah, but that's
breaking.
not upkeep. That's like the opposite of upkeep. You don't like repair your weapons.
No,
You
that's
just
true.
go through
That's
them,
true.
right? Like
Yeah.
that was more like Halo in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
can
you know,
see
in
that.
terms of like scavenging from the battlefield rather than
yep.
like upkeep. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, there's that. Obviously, like there's a lot of just riding around on horses in this game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing that really got me, the thing that really annoyed me was the controls. I just could not. I could not handle it.
Yeah.
It felt like super bad, and then like I was getting extra frustrated when like I was doing that first sort of train mission, and like my teammate would keep on running out and dying, and then I'd lose.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, guys! Like this is like, I mean, I'm not normally one to say it's 2018, but like, it's 2018, guys. Like, you know, the concept of having to like protect someone who, if they die, you fail, is kind of like a pretty old school mechanic
Right.
at this point.
But were
And-
you kind of like veering him off to like the train and kind of putting him in a position
I
where he
didn't
Trying to push him
think
off
I
the
was
side.
doing anything in particular.
Yeah, I
what
don't
I was
think-
doing was struggling, trying to hit people with my gun from like really far away, and getting really fucking confused about exactly what the mechanic is for reloading that damn repeater thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because like seriously, so explain to me how this works exactly. Because like sometimes you press the button and it fires and reloads, and sometimes you press the button and he doesn't reload for no apparent
Oh,
reason.
so
and then
you-
you have to press it again, and then suddenly but then sometimes when you press it again, he like fires again randomly sometimes when I'm not expecting it. And like, what the fuck's going on, Severn? Like, just
Let-
live. What
let me-
actually?
as-
not blaming you directly for this problem, but I want you to explain to me.
that way,
Why did you
Severn?
do this to me?
All right, Jonathan, as a representative,
Right. Official representative Rockstar here.
Yeah.
Give me the
one R2 button will actually shoot.
Sorry,
fire your
R2. I
gun.
should say R2 rather than
R2 is shoot.
Yeah.
But you also have to press it again to then cock the hammer back.
Yeah, but sometimes not.
No.
Yeah, but
Doesn't it depend on the
seriously,
gun?
seriously, it's seriously, honestly. Sometimes when I press the button,
Yep.
it does the shoot and reload, and
Yeah.
sometimes not, and it really confuses me. And I that means because then what'll happen is I'll press the button again, expecting to reload, but then I'm actually firing, and then now So
You're
just
pressing R2 to reload? Come on, John. Circle is reload.
okay, no, but I mean reload like as in cock. Again.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, that's what I mean.
I see.
Re-prep?
Re-prep the
Sure.
prepare the gun for shooting again.
Gotcha.
Which I'm
See, I don't know what's going on here, Jonathan. I didn't have my teammate die,
Right.
but I
okay.
also didn't put him in situations where
Right,
he
okay,
would have
all right,
died.
all right.
Because I have seen other people
Okay,
like
so
do
then
that.
let's talk about looting. Holy fucking
Yeah.
Jesus, I hate it.
tell me
so
about
badly.
it.
So
Blake is nodding a lot here.
My God. Like, come on. You don't need to play a fucking long animation for every goddamn thing you do. It's just, I mean, the thing is, like, do you remember back when Red Dead Redemption 1 came out? Do you remember the thing everyone said about Red Dead Redemption 1? What was the meme about Red Dead Redemption 1?
no, I don't know.
Long fucking skinning animations. It was like the thing, right? Like if you remember Red Dead 1, it was like the complaint was the skinning animations are long. And it's like, okay, we're gonna just like so for Red Dead Redemption 2, we're gonna like improve on that and just make sure absolutely everything has got a long, annoying animation.
Yeah.
Not just the skinning. Let's just do it for absolutely everything. That's gonna be a massive improvement to this game.
If you park your horse over the corpse though, and then,
Yeah, I know. That was true in Red Dead Redemption 1. Do not even you cannot be true in Red Dead Redemption 2 as well, right?
what happens
I've
when
had
you-
it happen a couple times.
Really, in Red
Yeah.
Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
So you're telling me the same thing that like, oh my God. Yeah.
What is it? Is this a
So in
workaround?
Red Dead Redemption 1, the thing you do is if you put your horse on top of the thing you're going to skin, then
Yeah.
you try to do the thing. It kind of like bugs out and like doesn't play the skinning animation, but
Right.
still gives you the thing
Okay.
and skins the animal. So this was like the
Awesome.
thing people would say back then is like you could do that. Yeah.
All right, I'm on the opposite side where I kind of like to see it.
I mean,
John.
okay, but like,
But how
but the
many
thing is, like,
times?
but it's just constant, like all
Yeah.
the time, like every, like, okay, and the thing is, and it's got that thing that games do. This is something that Jonathan Blow really hates, by the way. Is like, there's people going like, "Hurry up, man! Come on, do the mission, blah, 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 like, do this thing." Like, it's constantly people bitching
Time
at you to
constraints.
continue to move forward, and you're suddenly, I'm trying to work through these fucking glacial,
Right.
like pick up like animations, these loot animations
Where there's
that
a
I'm supposed to be
false
doing.
Oh well,
urgency.
that was on the train, right? When you're going through the train and looting, and you're
Yeah, exactly.
That
You're
guy's
trying to
just
loot
like,
stuff. They're
"Get over
putting
here."
stuff there. They're training you like you need to be searching every desk drawer and like picking shit up. And then meanwhile, the guy's like, "Oh, come on, man, you gotta go." And then meanwhile, he's like running off into the distance and then getting shot, and then you lose. And then I have to loot all the same fucking containers again. I mean, like, you know, this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. And the thing is, but this, like, okay, actually, you know what? I'm gonna get out my phone. And I'm gonna
man.
read off the list. That I
you
made.
made a
And I was
list?
like,
You made a list?
I made a list. I made a
Alright,
list.
alright.
So I was like, you know, 'cause, okay, I heard I was going to be on this podcast.
Let's go point by point.
Yeah.
Let's.
I heard I was going to be on this podcast.
Yep.
Heard.
I'll take
yeah,
this.
I heard about it. So
You
then I
didn't
was
get
like,
to say. We demand.
yeah. So then I was like, okay, next time I play this game, I'm going to make a list. Okay, so like, the first thing I have is the character moves ridiculously slow by default unless holding a button down, which means you just have to be holding a button down all the time. And then I've got pick up dead body versus.
Wait, can I respond?
Yeah,
to that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right,
Point,
all right.
point,
You
yeah.
can toggle that. You can change that to a
Okay,
toggle.
so I can non-default controls. Got it. Okay, so I mean, there's a rant later on in here about that controls screen because
Okay.
like that's just
Before we get
Yeah.
to before we move on, why is the default slow? And where is this toggle located?
So I suspect it's slow because it has to load animations, like the loot animation.
No. I'm saying why do you walk
so
rather
yeah,
than
you walk
run
by
as the
default
default
rather than run.
I don't know because
think
run is
it's-
like an additional. Like you're not normally running. You're not default
Yeah.
running, right?
No, but in
But
a game,
but I want
I
to
don't-
default
I
run.
don't
Like,
wanna
I
be
want to run
moving.
all the time, and so I have to hold down. It's like anything I do in this game, I'm holding down X while I'm doing it. Like there is no time when I'm not holding that down.
I think they're
you know what
just trying to like force immersion to be like you're
I
swaggering
guess.
down the street kind of
so
thing.
there's this is something that frustrates me when immersion gets in the way of fun.
Right. So that is literally if you had a headline for Red Dead Redemption, that would be the headline. Immersion getting in the way of fun. That's my sum
That
up
was
of that
my
game.
impression.
I would say it's more simulation rather than
Right.
this fun
Right.
thing.
But I
Um,
don't.
Okay, so this one really trolls me. Picking up a dead body versus picking up the loot is the same button, but looting a dead body is a different button, right? So if you want to loot a chest, you're pressing, and I don't remember which one. It might be triangle.
Yep.
If you want to pick up a dead body, that's triangle. But looting a dead body is circle. And so what that means is that like you loot a container, then you walk onto a dead body and go to loot that. But then when you do that, instead it like plays the slow pick up a body animation. And so now I'm picking up a body.
Yeah.
And so like conceptually they were like, oh, triangle is pick up, and therefore pick up should be like pick up a body or pick up an item.
Right.
But actually looting the body, which is conceptually the same thing as looting a chest,
That feels backwards.
and that's just the kind of shit that I'm like that's all through the game. And the penalty is like 7 seconds of picking up this body and pressing the button again to drop the body again. And
Can
it's
you
just
not
like
cancel that animation?
No, absolutely not. There's no animation canceling.
Well,
in
you
this
can.
game.
You can.
Okay, you can.
You can walk away from it.
From the body.
While
as you,
you're
Well,
Warp away.
if you press square to pick up the body and he's like hasn't picked up the body yet, you can pull like the left stick down the opposite way and he'll stop.
Oh, okay, I didn't pick that up in the time that I played with it.
Have you had the problem of loot piling up on each other and you have to like cycle through?
I have
like,
not
a thing?
had that yet.
That is the thing that annoys me the most.
Right. I mean, to be fair, like PoE on Xbox is guilty of that one.
Sure,
So,
but this is just
like
4 or 5 items.
Right,
and
right.
You have to cycle through the whole thing.
So then we've got looting animation as slow as molasses, which we've already covered.
Remember,
then
this is optional. Too.
Okay, so then there's my rant here where I was like, okay, so this is very early on in the game. So the thing that I wrote was, how the fuck do I even open my inventory again? I can't work it out. And looking at the control screen, and we're looking at the control screen, the titles flick from one thing to another, so I can't even find out by going to the control screen. So this thing super trolled me. Okay, so this is the thing. So you're on the control screen, right? And I'm trying to find the thing for inventory. Because I don't remember what it is. And the thing I'd forgotten, by the way, is the fact I had to hold the button down.
Yeah.
So therefore, I just could not find it. Like, I tried every button, I couldn't find it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm going to the control screen. And the thing that the fucking control screen does is it fades between one thing to another at a relatively fast clip that you can't control. And so that means is you're looking for inventory and you're looking around and then everything changes. And so you look around again, but now inventory's not there because it's one of the 3 fucking things it rotates through. It's like first of all, even finding the control screen was hard enough. Like when I said this to Mike the other day, like, oh yeah, I was talking about this control screen. It's like, there's a control screen was the thing that he said. Like, he couldn't actually find it. So I mean, there's a fucking failure right there. But then the actual way the control screen fades between things, like it makes it completely pointless to actually find the control you're looking for, because as you look around it changes. You don't even know, like, is there a control for this? I don't fucking know. It's just crazy. So that thing there, that really trolled me. And then I've got my complaint about Lenny randomly dying. And then we've got then there's the fact that every fucking thing you do in this game requires holding a button, not pressing a button. And that means that every single damn thing just takes forever to do, because you've got this whole like, hold the button down for a second, hold the button down for a second.
I hate that.
Like, it's just awful. Like, don't fucking do that horrible control screen.
Real talk. Why do they do that?
The reason why they do it is because they've got way too many goddamn controls in this game. And so basically for every button, they've got like the thing that happens if you press it, the thing that happens if you hold it down, and then like 5 other contextual things that happen depending on where you're standing.
I've seen a lot of games where this is also just the default behavior to interact with
that I
objects.
don't understand. If you can get away with not doing that, you don't do that, right? Like holding down is just an awful laggy experience that you just don't do if you can get away with it.
No Man's Sky, for some reason, you hold down. And
yeah.
there's like mods. One of the first mods was to make it.
Right.
Like, why was that ever the case? Why was
Okay, so then I've got this another in terms of controls. So then I've got this thing. What the hell? An NPC asked me to aim my gun at the train engineer, and I had to press R2 to do it. But normally you have to press L2 to do that. Right? So for some reason, so you know how there's that thing down the bottom right, which is like, here's some buttons.
Oh, the prompts?
Like the prompts that like, okay, you can press like triangle to do this and L2 to do that, whatever, right? So the thing is, the thing said aim your gun R2, right? But R2 is normally the thing that would shoot the gun, and L2 is the thing. But the reason why that was is probably because they've got this thing that's like R2 is like the aggressive action or whatever you mean, or something that.
No. So yeah, L2 would bring out the context menu, but if you don't have your gun equipped, it will quickly bring out your gun. R2 will quickly draw your gun.
Okay, so it's special.
Maybe
for
I'm
if
just
you don't have your
confused about
gun
the
equipped.
situation.
Yeah,
if
R2
you don't-
I think was like fire from the hip kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
But in this situation, it was to aim your gun. But the thing is, I'm definitely used to L2 to aim, right?
Yeah.
Right, but if you don't have it equipped, if you're not already aiming a gun at him, then it will.
But I mean, I did
draw
have
your
a gun equipped. I definitely did. This
Right.
was one of those contextual options that's like a dialogue thing, and I think R2 is what they just used for that because it's like the aggressive one.
Okay.
I found
It was very confusing for me because it just seemed like backwards than what I was. And once again, this just all comes down to the controls are just a messy soup of like random stuff.
And yeah, I agree. There's a lot for those to take on.
And then the rest of it is pretty much complaining about repeaters, which we already discussed. So yeah, this was a relatively short game.
Right.
So this is interesting. So all of this being said, right? So I was having this rant about controls to someone who was like a huge Red Dead Redemption 1 fan. Which
Who's this person? Me?
no, it was not. It was not. It was my wife's brother actually. So anyway,
Okay.
He's a lot younger than me, which is why I'm going to chalk this up to. But anyway, so he was like, I was having this rant to him, and he was like, oh yeah, is it like that much different from Red Dead Redemption 1? And I'm like, I played like half of that game. Like I got up to Mexico and then kind of petered out. But I don't remember that one being bad. So anyway, so he loads up Red Dead Redemption 2 on my console, and he just like, and I was explaining to him some ranting about like horses that I had.
Sure.
And he just kind of like immediately seemed to grasp it and like immediately was like fine and just like shoot people and like was immediately just like way better than I was. And I'm like, okay, well now I feel kind of dumb because like he seemed to immediately take to it. On the other hand, he was like a massive Red Dead Redemption 1 fan.
Right.
So
but it is very much like feels like a Rockstar game. So I guess that's that bridge too. Like if you come from a GTA Red Dead background, of course you're gonna.
I don't remember whether was Red Dead on PC.
No,
it wasn't.
No.
So I don't have that excuse.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know why I feel so terrible at aiming and shooting and doing everything. And like the very first thing they teach you in this game is like double tap and hold X to like run with your partner. Like it's just like the very first thing is like some weird fucking control. Like it just
and hold it to like keep up with them, and then like
so
double
the
tap
whole
to,
rant
like,
about movement speed is another thing. Like the very first thing is like going in it's like riding horses in formation, and it's like totally like weird with the way that they make you do that. And then like also like your horse just moves at random different speeds. I don't know whether I even have to hold X to move my horse fast. Like do I have to? Do I not? I don't understand. Like I'm all the time I'm like double tap holding X just in case. Like and
Yeah, that's
like,
what I've been doing.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
In case,
just in case. I'm always, like seriously. I don't even know. Like am I like spamming X? Is it making me faster? I don't know. I can't quite work it out. Like it's just seriously. Like the speed that you move in that game is like a fucking confusing mess.
Yeah.
So I like you'd think that the basic concept of like how do I run should not be this like giant fucking dilemma with like like the thing is I like to think I'm a relatively scientific person. Like I try things. Like, I have a hypothesis. I try to prove that by doing things, and yet somehow this game is defeating me. In like my ability to understand. So
it's just too many variables.
There's too many context. There's too much context going on for everything, and that's ultimately they've tried. They're packing so many controls onto that controller that it's just impossible. So yeah.
It did take me a little while to do it as well. How do you feel about radial menus? Because they very much double down on them.
I don't love them. I especially don't love them when you have to hold down another button to keep them open.
Yeah.
And where letting go is the interaction that consumes something.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, and then it's like you have to hold one button to hold the inventory, and then like tab with another thing, and then like you've got your claw hands going on.
That's definitely the case here.
Yeah.
But I think it's very much indicative of their dialogue system where they're not putting another menu at you. They want you to do it in the world.
Yeah,
so
I know, I get it.
It's very much that.
I understand. And once again, we're coming back to, immersion beats gameplay is the absolute, like, the thing of this game, right?
Yeah.
That is the trade-off they're making in every single respect.
It's interesting because it's, to me, now I haven't played this game, but I've played games where, the radial, you have to deal with a radial menu while gameplay is going on, and it takes me out of immersion because unlike in real life where I make a decision and I perform that decision, I have to make a decision and then deal with a UI while the world is still going on.
Yeah.
Whereas if it paused the world or slowed down the world or whatever, gave me a time to deal with the UI component, it feels more natural.
Well, this does slow down the world a lot.
It slows it down, but it doesn't stop it, and that makes you feel like, am I still supposed to be holding X while I'm doing this? Because that was a mistake I was making for ages. It's like I'm sitting there trying to claw around with my fingers, and I'm sitting there holding X at the same time as well, just add extra insult to injury here. But like if it had just paused like completely, I would have felt way better about it.
Because then because it hides so much stuff within those radial menus.
Right,
that you
need time to explore it,
to,
like
look through
and
it.
then you're being stressed out by the like fact that there's like people attacking you on horseback. Like it's it's real rough.
There's a lot there because they've also got that looting system, which opens up even more options. So it's basically like Grand Theft Auto, but you add a horse menu and an items menu to it.
I do not understand what's going on with the like cores, by the way. Like I don't understand, like they call them cores. And I like there's a whole, like I probably would understand if I'd played it more, but like there's a whole thing there I just don't understand. Like I do not understand, like okay, there was a menu I saw at one point that was like where it was like a grid that I could like look through and like drink stuff, and I can't find that anymore. Like now it's a radial menu, and like and I can't see.
That's your horse satchel.
That's my horse satchel. Okay, right. So so basically what you're saying is that I can't. Like so
But you've also got your own satchel.
you've got your own
Okay, so
satchel.
there's your own satchel as well, and then like I don't understand. Like,
Oh.
I'm looking for the thing I want to eat, but like I can't find it. All I can see is like one of the drinks, and
Probably
like I
on
don't
your
know.
horse satchel.
Oh.
Yeah, because dude, I was like stowing away a lot of like meat that I was cooking by the fire.
Yeah,
And I couldn't find it. For the
Yeah.
life of
yeah,
me.
Well,
like
meat doesn't show up in the radial menu.
yeah.
Well, I know it's on your horse.
It's in your satchel, though.
Your horse satchel.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's in...
Your the meat that you cook in your campfire.
Is it in the horse satchel?
That's what I found out.
Why is he putting it? Because it just says the animation where you're sitting in the fire cooking
he
it. He
puts it
says
in-
put it away. He puts it in his satchel.
Okay, great. So yeah, case closed. I
Yeah.
would say.
Hey, how beautiful is that game? How does that
It
game
looks
look?
pretty good. It looks pretty
Holy
good.
crap.
Yeah. It looks nice, and it's
It looks
nice.
really, really nice.
Mike,
goodness.
you've put a lot more hours into it.
Yeah.
But you still struggle with the controls.
Yeah, I was telling you that like in most games, when they have like those help menus kind of things that like tell you what to click on
Like
and stuff
prompts
like that,
and stuff.
prompts and
Yeah.
stuff. I'll use at a certain point I'll turn those off. But in this game, I absolutely cannot turn that
Right,
off.
right.
That's funny. Where are you?
I'm still in Valentine.
Okay.
I'm pretty close to the end of Valentine, I think.
Yep.
I just had a big shoot up in Valentine.
Have you done a bank robbery?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Spoilers.
I'm just going around doing some open world stuff, man.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was kind of when it opened up. That was kind of when I lost interest completely.
When the game
So,
starts.
You just
yeah,
got to go
yeah.
to that icon, those yellow icons.
So I mean, okay, so I got to Valentine, and I did a few more missions, and I kind of screwed around for a bit, and then I was kind of like, yeah, I should play more of this because I'm going on this podcast to talk about it.
Oh.
Right.
And then I still couldn't really quite some of the effort.
You just couldn't.
I think
So
that says a lot.
speaking of other games I don't like, let's talk about Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
So
is that the latest one?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
I haven't played
Interesting
that,
that nobody else here has played it because in theory this should be a big tentpole game, right?
in theory.
And yet somehow,
I didn't even know
It
it
sort
come
of just
out.
passed
Did-
by, I
yeah,
remember.
exactly.
When was it
And-
released?
I would say probably about 3 weeks ago.
So like a week before Red Dead?
Yeah,
That's a bad
maybe,
time to
maybe,
release
maybe
a
it
game.
might be
Yeah.
4 weeks. I don't know exactly, but so I was a massive fan of the last two games. I love them. I really did. And this one is bad for reasons I don't even think I can understand, which really bothers me because normally I like to think I know why a game is bad.
What are the so the last ones were sort of linear-ish.
Okay, so they were. If did you ever play them?
No,
Did
but
you
I
ever play Crisis 1?
I played Crisis 2 or 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
The
Okay,
one
but
in
like,
New York
so
City.
there's this style of like game that I quite like actually, where it's like little tiny chunks of open worldness,
Right.
that is like a thing.
The other Crises were like
yeah, that's
that.
what I'm saying. Yeah, like so, it's especially like they give you like these kind of pieces of like sort of slightly open world, but really not.
It's kind of like
gameplay.
there's multiple lanes you can
Yeah,
take.
kind of. But I mean, more than lanes though.
It's
Like
like
it's
a
kind of
big
like it's
chunk,
more like a little
right? It's like a-
sandbox of
yeah.
like just but like micro sandboxes, if you will. So there's not so it doesn't open up so much that you get lost and feel like I don't know what I'm doing and all that
Right.
stuff. You've always got a goal, and but
Yeah.
like there's just like and so the Tomb Raiders were very like that, but they also had very linear kind of sequences that I really enjoyed as well. Like
Okay.
the whole like everything's falling down and you have to climb stuff, and I really like, and plus I actually really quite like that kind of just like climbing
cinematic?
on shit. Like like I really love Uncharted and that kind of stuff as well. Like for those reasons, like I really like that type of gameplay.
Yeah.
And so I went into this really excited because I love climbing on shit.
Yeah.
And so that and this is the type of game that it is. Yeah, I don't know. Like it just seems like it's like you took the last two games and you just made every component of them like 20% worse.
Oh.
How?
Like the combat is less good, but like by a little bit, and like the storyline is less good by a little bit, and like the climbing is less good by just like a little bit. And it's like everything. It's like you just took the polish and
Right.
removed it.
So I can
Like-
understand how something like story can become less good, but it baffles me that you can take a mechanic that you've already created and works and people like, and how that can become
Well, it's like you
worse.
just made the level design just worse because I don't know, like it just
doesn't
doesn't
fit as well
it's
or
just not as
something? I
good.
don't
Like I don't know,
understand.
the puzzles just aren't good really.
That's
and
the criticism I've heard. That the puzzles suck.
The puzzles aren't good, but also the
Okay.
dialogue is bad and the story is bad.
I
and,
always
like-
thought Tomb Raider
okay,
dialogue
but, no,
sucked.
but here's the thing: I'm saying bad, but they're not bad. They're just not.
Not
just
as
worse.
good
they're
as
not, they're not
previous.
great.
Yeah.
And so it's like you take an entire game, all of good but not great things, and you put it together, and it's just kind of meh. Like it just kind of doesn't really.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When did the last one come out?
It must be 2 years ago.
Rise.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
halfway through Rise.
Okay.
And
still?
I just
You petered
tapped
out?
Yeah.
So
halfway through.
I actually still liked that game. Yeah, I mean I understand people did people got a little bit bored of that one. But
They do a lot of that false time constraint stuff as well.
yeah, they do. They do.
And that was rough.
Yeah, but this one I liked Rise. Like it's I really do like that type of gameplay and puzzles and stuff. And yeah, the Shadow just doesn't. It's just not there. I don't know. Like it's just a whole bunch of good things adding up to something that's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Such a bummer. You played 2 games that you just disappointed you in like the last month.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
the last game you really enjoyed?
Yeah.
It's got to be God of War, right?
God of War was
Oh, right,
amazing.
sure.
That was in fact that game might be one of the best games I've ever played in my life.
That's funny. I say the
yeah,
same thing about Red Dead.
Yeah, yeah. But then, okay, you know what? God of War, once again, just the right amount of open world for me. Like God of War hits that perfect balance of like it's kind of got the slight amount of open worldy, but it's still what you're doing, right? Like and you don't and you don't feel like there's just too much. Like you feel like you could find everything in that game. I mean, I didn't, but you feel like you could.
Yeah.
And so you get. Whereas a game like Red Dead, it's like okay, there's just way too much shit.
Oh,
here.
dude,
Like
it's
I'm
huge.
never gonna find everything in that game. Like
Yeah.
I don't even want to try.
Does
And that
it
makes me
bug
not
you?
want to try.
Okay, does it
Yeah.
bug you when there's too much to find?
It does. It does. Like when
puts you
there's
off.
too many things. Whenever I feel like there's too many things I could be doing, like the right amount of things I feel like I could be doing right now is like 3 things. Once you get past that, I'm like, yeah, I just don't.
Did you like The Sims?
No, but then I never really played it. So
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't.
Because that was a game I was thinking about recently, where you have a lot of different goals for your various Sims, and you can't really complete all of them. Like for example, there's a
Right.
bunch of different career ladders, and you can't climb all of them.
Well, I mean,
with any-
for a comparison that I suspect
Yeah.
is similar and yet probably a game I've actually played. I mean, SimCity, right?
right?
I mean, there's no goal there, and yet somehow that still seemed to grip me, at least
Interesting.
the earlier ones.
Right.
So I mean, in theory, like, I mean, I really like stuff like The Settlers and so on. Like those games, I really like, and they're sort of like unconstrained, but yet somehow you still feel a goal that you have,
Sure.
and
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the matter of like, it sounds like it's an overload of things to do, which makes you want to just like not deal with it.
I guess I think so.
Are you normally a completionist when it comes to games?
Yeah, kinda. But then I mean, so my general MO is that like anything I see that I can do, I will do whatever
Right.
it takes to do that thing.
Yeah.
But if I don't see it, I'm not like going to go looking for it. You know
Right.
what I mean? So in a game like God of War, if like I see a thing, like if I see one of those like what do they call like neon chests or something? I can't remember what they call them.
Yeah.
One of those 3 things. I'm going to absolutely do every single one of those that I find.
Yep.
But if I
Right.
don't find one, I'm not like crying about that. Like I'm not going to go like through the list of like you've done X out of Y and then like actually make sure I
Right.
do all of those. I'm just going to do the ones I see. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah.
So Severn,
Yo.
you've been playing a lot of Red Dead.
Yeah, buddy.
Is it your favorite game?
Yeah,
Why?
because of the content. I actually like
Okay.
that. I actually like that open world. I think it feels very believable. There's a lot to do in it. Just being around it is so beautiful.
So believability and immersion is important to you.
Yeah.
If there were no, if you removed towns from that game, so that there was not
Just
really
forest?
there's not really a point to like sell skins anymore or whatever it is. You know, like
It's funny. You want to see where you keep asking me these kind of questions.
I'm
of
curious,
like how
where does it
far
break?
you-
Where does the
yeah,
gameplay
yeah,
break?
where's the break point for you, where the immersion without goal becomes pointless?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just curious because it's so interesting to me that like there is such a huge differing of opinion here.
Yeah. Well, that's very much just taste, right?
Right.
But
Why?
Jonathan, if you get back in there and just go for like the yellow icons,
Right.
I think you'll be okay.
Okay, you reckon?
Those are
There's still
the
okay,
heavy
but
story.
even still,
the
there's
controls
a lot
are
of,
still a
there's a lot.
problem.
The controls are still bad
Oh,
for
yeah,
me, and the
yeah.
other problem is that there is still a lot of just okay. So I have zero connection with any of the characters, and so therefore, listening to some guys on horseback talk about characters that I have no connection to is just boring. Like,
But you do learn more about these
yeah, I'm
characters.
sure you do, but especially at the beginning of the game. I mean, I know a lot of people have said that they don't like the beginning, so that's not new ground exactly. But I mean, like they literally just throw you in there with like, here's a bunch of like, here's an entire camp full of characters you don't know anything about.
Yep.
There's just way too many people to give a fuck about
Right.
there.
It's
And so then,
kinda
then
cool.
they'll just start talking to you randomly about some detail of this person's character, and it's like, I just don't care about this. Like, you haven't introduced me enough to these characters to care. And
But
so
is that
then,
not a case of like with enough time that all
Yeah, but
that
I mean, the
will
thing is,
become
like,
relevant?
you have to sit through a lot of 10-minute monologues about people you don't know about.
Again, you don't have to.
Well, how you can't fast travel?
Oh, what? When you're actually on a mission?
Well, yeah, I mean, like what I'm saying is like, okay, so the first like 3 hours of that game is like, you're running next to someone listening about people you don't care about, right?
Yeah,
like,
I get that.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is like you does that stop? I mean, do you get to the point where you no longer need to listen?
No, that's very much
Right. I mean, I might
the foundation of
well, the
like,
foundation of GTA is like you ride in a car with someone, listening to them talk until you get to the mission, and then you do stuff, right? So
Yep.
I imagine it's the same here with horses.
very similar.
But what I'm saying is somehow in GTA I cared more about the characters. So when I was listening, I didn't feel bored, and also I was like dodging between cars and like doing stuff while I was doing it. Like I had something to keep my brain occupied while I was like. And here it's like you're literally just holding down X+1 or like double X.
Or maybe just tapping
Maybe
X
I'm
every
just
once in a
tapping X. I don't
while.
know. I'm doing some stuff, but whatever it is, it's not engaging enough for me to like.
Are you in those situations? Are you taking the lead or is the NPC?
The NPC is
Yeah,
taking
you're
the lead,
following
and you are
his
literally
dictate.
just
Key
holding the
difference.
button down.
In GTA,
Yeah.
you're driving.
Right, exactly, and
You-
you have to
you determine
dodge
the pace at
cars
which
and like
you
go
get
to a
to
place,
the-
right?
Yeah,
But
you
you
can
also-
drive
you-
a wagon, man. Like there are situations
I
where
guess
you're
the
driving.
occasionally
Wagons
the-
are so slow though.
Yeah, I know.
There's
Most
that-
of the time, yeah.
Hey, man, it was a different time.
There's
Yeah.
that
Okay,
mission.
yeah, once again,
Oh
from
my
immersion
God.
point of view, absolutely.
Yeah.
From a gameplay point
They
of view,
really captured it, right? That
Yeah.
old timey
they captured
slow
it.
feel.
Oh yeah, they captured it. Like absolutely.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
crazy how we
Yeah.
don't live like that anymore.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
don't we live like that
Yeah.
anymore? It seems like so much fun.
Hey, man, if you don't have short attention span,
I mean, as someone actually who does have attention deficit disorder, like, maybe this is the actual problem.
I find it interesting that they've gone so hard for immersion, but then, like you were saying, that very early missions, your ally gets killed. They just say you fail, try again.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at a game like one of the Elder Scrolls games or whatever, either the NPC just doesn't die, or the NPC dies and you deal with that.
Yeah.
The fact that there's these very restrictive rules.
well, they very much want to tell
you
a
explore
certain
this
story.
beautiful world, but don't mess up because there's only specific things you're allowed to do.
The thing is, there's such a huge cast of characters. They could totally be like, if one of them gets
Yeah.
killed in a mission, you
Another
just don't
one
have
will-
access
yeah.
to that
Yeah.
person's
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
mission
Yeah, that
anymore.
happens too.
I mean, later on, maybe it opens up more. I mean,
But
and
why-
then you can kill those characters. and
Why are
stuff.
they not consistent about that?
Shut
Why
up,
why
man.
is it like some characters can die, but
Well,
only
you feel
some?
that there's a definite story they want to tell.
Yeah.
That have
Depends on if
these
they have,
they have
Sure.
plot. They have
then,
plot
then
armor.
build the gameplay mechanics to deal with that. Don't
Yeah.
force it like
No,
you failed.
I agree with you, but I just understand.
Can you
why
think
they've
of
done
a
that.
video game that does that?
Yeah, I just listed Skyrim.
But with the two possible outcomes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure The
Oh.
Witcher does that
Oh,
as well.
okay,
Like, if you lose,
so-
if you fail a mission, you just fail it and you just continue on.
That's
Like,
kinda
there's
cool.
no restarting it unless you die.
I mean, you
So
can always load a
that's
save
it.
game, of course, if you don't
Yeah.
want to.
So Morrowind, for example, you could kill NPCs that were
have you heard of
integral.
this really good game, Morrowind?
I've heard of it. I've seen the like 3-minute speedrun or whatever it is of Morrowind.
3 minutes
I love
speed.
it.
I don't know if it's
Wow.
exactly 3 minutes,
Yeah,
something
it's,
like
it's
that.
very quick.
Yeah.
It's super dumb
silly,
though how
yeah.
it works.
Is it half A presses?
Oh, I love Happy Press.
I think there is a jump over a
man.
wall or something, right? Isn't that?
They like glitch through some.
Yeah, they
stuff.
do. They do
Yeah.
lots of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, in Morrowind, you can kill NPCs that are integral to the main quest.
Yeah, they
and
just
it'll
can't.
say so. It'll say this person's died. You can't beat the game anymore. But you know what they don't do? They don't say go back and stop
Yeah.
you from playing.
Yeah.
You can just deal with that. And in fact, there are certain NPCs you can kill, and it'll say that, or and then there's like a workaround. You can go and find
Yeah.
one of the gods in the world, kill it, do this huge crazy side quest that they never hint about, and still beat the game.
So like that's very admirable,
Yeah.
but practically, there's really very few developers other than Bethesda doing that.
But that's what I find frustrating about this game, where it's like, it's so immersive.
So what they should just do is
Here's
just
all
make
these
them,
roadblocks.
Just make them invulnerable. Just make the
Yes.
NPC invulnerable. Just
That's
do
what
it.
which is
it's
what
just
they did
yeah.
for Oblivion and Skyrim,
Right.
if I recall correctly.
Yeah, just if it matters, make them invulnerable. Just
Yeah.
And then just wait for them to get on their horse again.
Like they can be injured and then useless during that
Yeah,
mission.
I mean,
but
tons of
riding
games these
alongside,
days.
you know?
The standard, pretty much at this point, is like they kneel down for a while and they get back up again. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty much the standard these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why? And I've seen this complaint. Red Dead has aged mechanics
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, no, it really does. It really does.
What
With
happened?
the radial wheel?
Um,
Or just the
More like
no,
just
no,
think
more-
about
control?
mission structures
Yeah,
and
exactly,
and
exactly.
open world objectives. Like with Legend of Zelda, all the quests are kind of there's like some interweaving of it, and they take you to important locations without you ever realizing it, and guide you to like to the shrines through these quests, and it's all kind of subtle. Whereas what I understand about Red Dead is it's like the quests are very like linear, and there's not a lot of interweaving between different NPCs. It's all kind of like You talk to this NPC, you go on a quest, you do the quest. It's a standalone.
I think the pacing's okay actually. But
Oh, it's not. It's not. I'm not talking about pacing.
Yeah, the
I'm
way they
talking- I'm
introduce you
talking
to
about-
new areas.
I'm talking about how the things that drive you through the open world are all
They're linear.
no, they're all standalone. You know, you talk to one NPC, you do their mission. They're not really involved in anything.
You're
else.
basically talking about WoW questing,
right.
and
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is what I would actually say that this game feels like it's influenced by an MMO.
Interesting.
Which may be true also of the other Rockstar games as well. Though more starkly here, especially when you start to get into all the whole like clean your horse and stuff like that, sort of level maintenance.
That's just straight up like for immersion, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. If
I
they just
think so.
tried to put so much immersion in there that you've got these annoying tasks that you have to keep doing.
I don't know why, by the way. This is a total side note, but I really don't like something about the gameplay of finding new horses in any game. This is true in Zelda as well. Like, there's something about that whole like, because it has this weird thing where it's like it's encouraging you to invest in an animal and bond with it, and then there's like, but then you feel like I never can connect with it because there's going to be some better horse later that I want to invest all my time in later, and so therefore it's like you're kind of telling like I feel like I don't want to invest emotionally in this horse because I'm gonna just there's just be some of the better
Yeah.
horse later on. You know what I mean?
It's a metaphor for life.
Well, I think
Right.
like,
Is it though?
Yeah. Hey, I don't. You know, it's almost like a metaphor for dating.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know,
If you feel like
you have to draw a line and say this horse is good for me.
okay.
I'm
I
a
feel
better
like I
person
feel like I
because of this
can't commit
horse.
to this horse because
And that's on you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I
you
just
know
feel
what?
like
Hey,
its stats
I
are
can't
too
be
low,
blamed.
and I'm never. And there's gonna come a time in the future.
Jonathan, you can
yeah.
work on that, man.
Yeah, and you know what? Go out and find a better horse.
Yeah, I know, but this is the thing. But so the thing is, somewhere in the game, I know there's the best horse,
Yep.
yeah.
and you know, like I feel like.
But
I
is it
can't
worth
commit-
the effort?
Yeah.
How
well,
many
that's the
other
thing.
people are after that horse?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah. That's a concern. That's a concern.
Is it just going to be an awkward mess?
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I don't like horse training mini games in video games.
Yeah. I'm enjoying like everything you don't like. I kind of love.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting to me that
Yeah.
there's this, and yet you won't try Zelda. Oh, so
Hey,
frustrating.
It's not one. I will at some point. I think. But
Yeah,
I think
and then
there
you're gonna
might-
complain. Oh, this is so old.
there might be a new. It's funny because I look at these games and I'm like, visually this looks like a 10-year-old game, and then I hear the same thing about the mechanics of like Red Dead.
Right.
Yeah, and you just don't care.
Like
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's,
I love
it's
it.
like two sides of the
Right.
same coin.
Well, talking about games that have brought a lot of disappointment.
shit.
This game's not even out yet. In fact, it's only just been announced.
Mhm.
Diablo Immortal.
Yeah.
So I'm sure everyone's aware of this at this point. But
You know, it's interesting because
BlizzCon-
of all of the games, like people who aren't gamers
Yeah.
have come out of the woodwork and to talk to like seriously, like
Really?
it's a controversy
it's
that
a
is blown
cultural
up.
touchstone at this
It's
point.
it's blown up to the point where like people who like haven't played games in a decade are like know about this and like
Yes.
talking about it. Like the disappointment is that high. It's
Yes.
amazing. And honestly, like I find it weird because normally when I see an internet rage storm, normally I kind of imagine, well, that's just a tempest in a teacup, and the real world won't really be affected by that. And yet
Right.
somehow here it's like you've got like shareholders like selling stock and
Yeah.
like market caps going down and stuff like that. Like I know it's like, you know, yeah, the internet and the real world don't normally touch to this degree, and you know, so it seems to actually matter this time. And
Right.
and that to me it's crazy, like the degree to which this is blown up. It's crazy.
It's interesting as a contrast as well because we announced our PlayStation 4 version, which there was controversy about when we announced the Xbox version. That was kind of reminiscent of what we saw with Diablo
yeah,
Immortal,
although I mean,
just to a much smaller
to a
degree.
much smaller degree in that case, but also like we've proved that we're not consoleizing our games,
Right.
so we've kind of got the benefit of the doubt
Yes.
now. So
the
that's-
PlayStation 4 announcement was like,
Yeah.
hey, great.
I mean, ultimately, the Xbox and PlayStation are effectively the same platform for the purposes of gameplay. So
Yeah.
so therefore,
The controllers
you know,
are even
yeah,
like,
exactly, basically the same. So yeah, I mean, like I don't think anyone's concerned that we're going to consoleize PoE based
Right.
on the PlayStation 4. You know, so yeah, like that's kind of just that's so therefore that's okay. But you know, but yeah, I mean, like the thing is ultimately, I think Blizzard would have been fine if they had just said, "Hey, we're working on a game for you as well,"
So why didn't they?
So why didn't they? Well, so I thought about this for a very long time. So here, just before I even go into that, here's another thing. The Elder Scrolls.
Yes.
They basically said, hey guys, we're releasing Elder Scrolls 6 and we're not going to say anything about it, and here's a mobile game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was fine.
Yep.
That was fine for them because ultimately, it was effectively proof that we're still making a game for you. And so all it really is, and the thing that I find interesting about it is that the question everyone has to say is, well, why wouldn't you just say you're working on D4? Why would you not just say it? And the only reason I can see is that they don't actually want to commit to making it. And that implies that they're not sure if they're ever going to release it. But the thing is, you hear that and you're like, that can't be true, right? It cannot be true. But then I guess, that sort of implies a certain amount of turmoil in its development, which, I don't know this, or I haven't heard anything about this, but there was that sort of rumor going on that I think someone posted where some people, I think it might have been Kotaku, but I'm not 100% sure I remember.
Yeah.
Where there was rumors of a story, and then when you sort of look at job postings and stuff, there's been several times where they've hired a creative director and a few things like that.
Very high ranking.
Yeah, exactly.
Positions.
Like multiple times they've done that, and so it kind of makes you just wonder, could there be so much kind of turmoil there that they don't want to even announce they're working on it in case it gets cancelled? And the other thing that I sort of also realize is that even if that's not the case, right? Okay, so imagine they announced they're working on D4 this BlizzCon, and then next BlizzCon comes along and they didn't have a proper announcement. That would be a really bad thing. So the implication then there is, are they maybe not sure they could reach an announcement a year from now? And that would be the concern that would lead to them not wanting to announce it. Because otherwise, you'd think they really would just say, we're working on this. Look, we were absolutely operating under the assumption that D4 would be announced.
Yeah.
This BlizzCon until very recently. It wasn't until they had their announcement a few weeks ago where they said, basically, we're not announcing D4. Not in those words, but they basically said it. In which case, we're operating under the assumption that they're going to announce D4 next BlizzCon. We're absolutely, we've talked before about how we're making 4.0. 4.0 is designed to go up against D4. That's absolutely, we're operating under the assumption that we're going to have to bring out a game in 2019 with 4.0 because Blizzard would be announcing that. So it's no secret we're working on 4.0. We've said this kind of thing.
But for a company like Blizzard, D3 was enormously successful financially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
No, of course. Look, I have no doubt they're working on a Diablo 4. That is absolutely the case. But they must feel pressured somehow to not announce that just in case,
But to me, even if you said, even if Blizzard said we're working on it, we can't show anything. We might not even be able to show anything next year or whatever.
Because I just don't think that they could get away with announcing a game and then not even having anything to show for it a year later.
They've done that before.
Have they?
StarCraft Ghost.
Oh yeah. Well, okay.
They've worked on games that they've announced and then.
But a
Blizzard loving what happened with StarCraft Ghost. The thing is,
is that worse?
So they
than
talk
what
about Warcraft.
with
They
this?
talk about Warcraft Adventures a lot when they're talking about this kind of thing, and they basically said, never again will we announce something that we don't know is going to be a shipping product. And so that is a thing they have actually said in the past. And so that and that's really the touchstone that I have for thinking there really can be no other reason, can there?
But is there harm in them saying we are working on this thing? It might not get released.
I would say there isn't, right? As a person who runs a company, I would absolutely have
because
said that.
That's functionally what they've said. They've said we're working on multiple Diablo projects.
They did say that in the past, and yet somehow they're really not
They've said it. They've said it a bunch of times.
And the weird thing is, the weird thing about that though is that they've got plausible deniability because they're working on the Switch port and the.
But the Switch port's out now, so they're not working on that anymore.
Yeah, but they haven't said we're working on multiple Diablo projects since then, have they?
Yes, they said it after. They said it at BlizzCon after the announcement.
Okay, right. So they did say that. Okay, right.
So what the?
That's right. I actually heard about that. How they sort of said it at BlizzCon, but it didn't really get too wide a press.
They've even said it after that. They keep saying it. They keep saying.
They said I saw
even after this announcement. We're still working on multiple.
Fair enough.
So the problem is for me as someone I used to work in games journalism. Everyone, this is like an implicit understanding. When you say that, what you mean is probably a sequel.
Yeah.
Right. So what is wrong with them saying we are working on Diablo 4? We don't have anything to show for you.
As I said, the only thing I can think of is that they must be thinking we can't get away with this for another BlizzCon then, right? If we still don't show something, because then imagine you announce you're working on something and then a year later you still can't say anything about it. like then you're really kind of like showing a pretty.
But that does happen, and it
does,
and
it does.
and it ends up for. I mean,
There
are a lot of games
no,
where that's
okay.
happened, and it's been.
I agree with you. This would be a much better way to go. I think that PR wise, they're absolutely like. I think that they're completely missing the boat PR wise on stuff, and they it seems like everything they say is like digging the hole even deeper with like some of the stuff. And I do not understand why they're acting the way they are. I don't. But the only theory that I have is the one that I've got here, and like I agree, it would be like personally. Okay, my opinion generally is like you obviously don't tell the community details about exactly like what the expansion is and that sort of stuff. But in general, I believe in transparency when it comes to like saying like we're working on these projects, just not what they are. You know, like, that's why I'm perfectly happy to say we're working on 400. And like I generally believe it is a good idea to be transparent about this stuff. It's just that like not everyone does, and so I can see the argument for not announcing things when you're not sure about what's going to happen with them.
So there's another theory, which is that whatever their multiple projects are, none of them is an action RPG in the way that like their fans are expecting.
I mean, I think that if that was the case, then they would still say we're working on Diablo 4. I think they would. Are you always suggesting that none of them they would name Diablo 4?
Potentially.
Like, as in they're working on like an MMO or something?
Yeah, they're working on like Diablo Renegades or whatever. I don't know what the heck they're calling it.
I mean, there was a rumor circulating a while back about like a brawler style game.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, what if they've said, okay, Diablo 3.
But here's
the turning point for this series.
But if that's the case,
it's the end of the action
but
RPG.
If that's the case,
Diablo.
then they're guilty of exactly what the community is charging them with.
Yes, and I think that's actually what's going on. Is Diablo Blizzard is not in touch with their Diablo audiences.
So I'm okay. Like to some extent, I can like okay. So you know what? It's interesting actually because when they first announced the mobile thing, my opinion is that okay, everyone's really angry and like okay. So my opinion about this kind of internet anger stuff is like. It's absolutely reasonable to be disappointed about something that you don't want, right? Absolutely reasonable opinion to have. What I don't love is the way that you get into this like weird like competition on who can be the most disappointed that goes on. Like, is it, like what I mean? Is like it kind of like self-reinforces into this like weird hate storm that like it's like. You know what I mean? Like,
it is disturbing that for some people a game can become that important to them, or at least that's the way they portray it.
But it just feels to me like it's this weird competition of like I'm going to see like you think you're angry, I'm going to be even more angry than you. You know what I mean? Like, and that I don't love, right? I don't love that. But you have every right, obviously, to be disappointed in something if you don't like it.
Yeah.
But when it turns into like this sort of greater meaning about like what it means for like them as a company and all that sort of stuff, that I was a little bit hesitant about at first.
Yeah.
But then once again, with the way the PR has gone after that,
the way they
it just sort of makes me feel like, well, I mean, like so yeah, that sort of bothered me a little bit. So like people make mistakes about PR, right? Like it happens.
Yeah.
But then it is weird when you double down on that, which to some extent they have.
It's interesting because this isn't even the first time they've done it. I don't know if you remember the Real ID.
Real ID.
I think that's what it was called. It was like for BattleNet, it would use your real first and last name and picture, and they doubled down on it, and then pulled back.
Wasn't that about connecting it to Facebook or something?
Something like that.
I don't quite recall.
They just wanted to. They're like, this is our. People are too mean on the internet, so now everyone is everyone. Everyone is who they say they are.
Yeah. Your name and address, right?
Yeah. and people are like, no. And they're like, yes. And then they're like, no, really, no. And they're like, okay, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah. So there's this weird thing that companies have where and I feel like we try is very difficult to not be guilty of this, is like companies are super afraid of ever saying they were wrong in the past. Like, they'll change something and then they really never want to say like, okay, we made a mistake.
They don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
but I mean, if they double down on it, they really look like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, so they double down on it in order to pretend like
no,
like,
this is a good idea.
Yeah,
definitely.
But then even when they do, so yeah, I mean, like we really try hard not to be guilty of that, and it's actually really hard because you really don't want to look like an idiot.
Right.
But it's honestly better.
Yes.
And honestly, the players tend to appreciate that like the thing that sucks about it, and I think is a thing that like they really like that there is a reason not to do this for, is that when you give in to people's demands, they then expect you to give in to their demands every time.
Yeah.
And so you generate this thing where like people will generate a rage storm about something that doesn't even deserve it because they know that you'll respond to that and then and accede to those demands. And so that's the position you put yourself in, which to some extent we have done. But I still think that overall it's better because like, you know, like you just have to be okay with like saying, yeah, we were wrong, we're changing a thing or whatever.
But also it shows that you're in touch with your audience.
I guess
that is important for the faith of your players.
Yeah.
If the players feel like this developer knows and understands what we as players want, they will have good expectations for the future.
I mean, the trouble is that where you will run into trouble is anytime your goals conflict with the community's goals. Because then it's impossible to find a middle ground that's going to be satisfactory.
And we've got cases of that as well.
We absolutely do. I mean, you know, the thing with Delve Energy was really hard to get right for those reasons because you know people just want to be able to play it as much as they want to play it,
right?
And yet we have the goal of we can't just let you get every item you ever want in 5 minutes. You know, like that needs to be a goal. We have to make sure the loot is not too, you know, like not too out of control.
Yeah.
And so those obviously, you know, like most players conceptually agree with that, but in practice they just want more loot. So it's really hard to balance that.
Yeah.
And so I guess the time I guess maybe what we're seeing here really is Blizzard's goals conflicting with the community's goals in a way that's not necessarily reconcilable. Which I hesitate to say is happening because it might very well not be, but it's really tricky. Like, you know, I mean, it's honestly hard to know. Like, but yeah, it's hard to see.
Here's I have this question.
Yeah.
Why did Blizzard choose to have Diablo Immortal developed out of house?
I suspect the reason why is because they probably felt like they didn't have a lot of mobile game experience.
Now, that was my theory too, but Hearthstone exists.
It is a different type of game, though. Like that.
So let me say something about that. So in China, they really do have a lot of experience making action mobile games.
Okay.
It is something that is not very popular in the West right now.
Why do you think that is?
Well, so the main reason. Okay, so this is going to sound a bit unrelated, but okay. There's this thing where when first-person shooters first came to PC, everyone was like, you can't have a first-person shooter on a console game. There's no mouse.
Right.
It's just awful. The controls are terrible. It really sucks.
Sure.
And then Halo came around. And
GoldenEye, excuse me.
Sure, okay. But no, I don't. I mean, like the controls of that were like. Sure. I mean, people play. Okay, but no, actually, it is. You know what? That's actually a very good thing because GoldenEye, nobody cared the controls were bad. It was a great enough game that you would just play it anyway, and it was coming to a console audience that didn't have FPSs to play, and they didn't care. And basically, what happened was that the people who hated console shooters pretty much aged out of being the relevant people anymore, and console people became like people who are happy to play an FPS on console became okay, and all the people on PC who basically said playing console shooters is garbage basically just kind of had to get over it and live with the fact and the new reality, right?
Yeah.
And in China, that's kind of also happening because in China, mobile games are like the people all have mobile phones and they don't give a crap about the fact that they're garbage to play. Like to them, it's like they're fine because they know mobile games and it they've got like the wisdom in the West is you can't have like joysticks on a touchscreen because it's bad, right? And it is bad. It's worse than a real controller, right? Yeah, you hate it so much. You say that, right? And yet people who are 12 years old don't care.
Yeah.
Right? They're just playing like there are people playing Fortnite like an FPS. Yeah. They're playing it like an FPS on a mobile game. Yeah, okay, third person, sure. But like they're playing like these games like they really have no like they have no like they shouldn't be good on a touchscreen on a phone, right?
Right.
And yet they're still playing it and they're enjoying the hell out of it. And so I guess in China they have action RPGs on mobile already. I mean, they're bad for reasons that I really don't appreciate them because they're like bad in ways like, okay, they've got like autoplay stuff and they've got like, of course there's the monetization model, which is like, like I obviously really don't like.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of other things. Like they've got all these things that and I think the itemization is terrible in all these games. And yeah, there's like a lot of reasons why I hate. I mean, I could continue to go on.
And they're ugly.
Yeah, no, they're not ugly. Okay, let me tell you, the one thing they are not is ugly.
Yeah, they're actually
right?
really
they are
pretty.
actually really pretty. And this is the thing. And this is the thing is that like in China they have a lot of expertise at making these action games. And so what I have to imagine is that what Blizzard thought is that, hey, like, you know, they've got a huge amount of ability to make good, relatively good feeling, you know, action games, right? Or at least as good as you can make them feel on a touchscreen, right?
Sure.
And so they thought, well, with our expertise in like, you know, designing whatever it is Blizzard feels they're good at designing, plus the, you know, the chops of this Chinese studio making an action game, they presumably thought they could make a pretty good game with that. And the thing is like they might even be right about that. Like they might even be able to make like one of the best like mobile action RPGs that you can have. But at the same time, they should totally expect their PC audience to feel like left out of that because you know it is ultimately a game for a younger generation that isn't necessarily the generation that their fans.
But here's the thing. They're a game developer. Blizzard is a game developer. And they're not developing this game.
So
their game.
once again, I would agree with that. And like, you know, I would certainly not make the decision to develop a mobile game not in-house. But at the same time, like I can see what they're thinking, right? Like I can see the argument.
But there surely for the future of Blizzard as a company, what the most important thing is to make sure that your developers are on the bleeding edge of gaming trends.
That is absolutely the case, and I'll tell you that it is a much better idea to get that skill in house in the long term. You don't want to contract that stuff out. So, and that's why I'm saying that I think it's a mistake for them to do it. But I still can understand the reasoning. I can see why they do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, that's
But to me, it's like another signal that Blizzard is not really aware of the game market more broadly at this point.
Well, I mean, you could argue they're more aware, given that, like, I mean,
okay.
So I mean, I think a lot of people say is that, like, you know, well, yeah, if mobile's the future, which once again I don't think it is, but if it is, then presumably your best action is to find whoever the best people are at making those games and then bring them into your company, right?
No, fair point. I guess it just seems it's very short-sighted.
Maybe
the way they're doing.
Maybe
to me, that's my opinion.
Okay.
That's an opinion.
See, it's obviously none of the views expressed here represent the feelings of whatever.
We're all individuals just expressing our opinions.
Exactly. And all that disclaimer stuff,
Yeah. What do you think about,
Jeez,
Diablo?
I think you guys covered it, man.
Yeah?
Like, and solid speculation on that.
Okay.
On the D4 stuff. Obviously, like, everyone knows about it, just they haven't officially come out.
Well, the thing, they're like a hair's breadth away from saying it. They just keep saying multiple Diablo projects. Just say the thing. It's fine. If you say the thing, all of this controversy basically goes away. Like, it's so silly to me.
Like we were saying before, like that's exactly what Bethesda did.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and
if Elder Scrolls 6 it takes like 5 years, you know what? They've done this where they've announced Elder Scrolls games and not shown anything at E3s or whatever because they're working on it.
But they don't have Bethesda Con, right? Like they
don't.
They do a press convention at E3.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, you would. I mean, look,
but it's not a 3-day.
People are going to go to that and expect to see the Elder Scrolls 6 next year.
Like, well, do you think they'll show some?
I don't know whether they will or not, but people are going to go there and expect that. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, they've announced it already. What else?
That's true.
They might just show some concept art. I remember there was like announcements about a Star Wars game years ago at E3 that they just showed concept art and people working on computers and being like, "Yeah, we're working on it."
Yeah.
So I mean, SquareSoft has also done this. They announced like a whole bunch of
SquareSoft.
Square Enix. Sorry, is it still 1998? I forget. Square Enix announced like Final Fantasy 13 and 13 Adagio.
I don't think that they're the best paragons of like managing a. Like that was seriously weird, by the way.
It was weird.
The whole Final Fantasy 13 like series of games, or like whatever,
absolutely
that was
weird,
really bizarre.
But they still announced a bunch of games, and then there were gaps where they didn't show it off.
And then they canceled some of them, and then merged some of them into others, and like there was like a whole weird.
But you know what they didn't do? They didn't go Final Fantasy Mobile. No more numbered Final Fantasies.
I mean, they kind of did some weird stuff around there for a while.
But no, not in this. I just think that the way this was handled was just, I think, about as bad as it could have been. I'm talking about Diablo here.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I feel like the communication could have been a little
how
better.
much worse they could have done it. I don't know.
the communication could not have been worse. I mean, in fact, okay. Let me tell you. Let's talk about something that happened that Chris actually linked me to today.
Okay.
He linked me to a picture that NetEase released, which is them collaborating with Blizzard, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So they released this picture, and Wyatt's sitting there in the room, and they've got a bunch of people from NetEase sitting there, and they're talking, and they're like pointing at a board, and the thing that's on the board in Chinese is discussing pay-to-win microtransactions.
Oh shit. Shit.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, it's just like, now is not the time, guys. Now is not the time.
Pretty funny. Is that up on Reddit? And everything?
I mean, I
That
assume it is.
statement?
Chris just linked it to me. I assume he found it on Reddit somewhere.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just bad feels, guys. Bad feels.
Where should I put this gasoline? How about on this fire over here?
Yeah. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Were you guys like big Blizzard fans, like growing up?
Yeah, dude, Blizzard was like my favorite company growing up.
How do you feel about them now? Like after this dilemma?
I mean, I haven't cared that much about Blizzard games for a while. Like,
Yeah.
I played, the last one I really played a lot was StarCraft, and I only played, like, Wings of Liberty, and I didn't get the next two expansions.
Brood Wars?
I played heaps of Brood War.
Yeah.
Like, original StarCraft and Brood War and Warcraft 3 were, like, my
Tell
jam.
you what, I'm pretty excited about the Warcraft 3 remaster.
Yeah, Sam, I'm looking
Mm.
forward to that.
Yeah.
That should be cool.
Oh, they announced it?
The Warcraft 3 remaster. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I'll definitely play that.
Yeah.
They had an awesome. They had a intro that was a recreation of the same Warcraft 3 intro from when it first came out in like 2000 or 2001 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's very cool seeing it in like modern.
their CGI team is so good.
Yeah.
I feel like
So
they're-
You know what? Actually, I'd say in recent years, though, I haven't appreciated much what they do, and I think it's actually like their CGI is still just as good, but the writing for
It's
the CGI is really
storytelling.
bad.
Yes. Yes.
Like the CGI used to be way more
Wrath of
interesting.
the Lich King was like a high point.
Right,
Their like CGI for that, where it was just very subtle, and it was just like the story of one guy, and then like after that it was Cataclysm, which was like flashy and
Right.
cool, but like kind of like
Dude,
not
that
really.
that Reaper of Souls cinematic. Like I still think
yeah,
about
that
that.
was very
Holy
cool.
shit! Like every little segment and cut is perfect. I think that's like absolutely perfect storytelling for a trailer.
Right.
To me.
They should just make movies now.
Well, people have been saying that. People have
I mean,
been
they
saying
did
that
make a
for a
movie,
really long time.
Yeah.
People have been saying that for a long time.
Except then they did make a movie and it wasn't that good.
Well, they didn't really make that, did they?
I actually don't know
Were
how
they-
deeply involved they were.
You mean like?
I mean, I assume they were involved
should
from a
make
story
one
point of
in-house,
view,
right?
but I'm pretty
Like-
sure they didn't have the CGI team of.
No,
See,
no.
which
Blizzard
seems
working on it.
crazy to me because if we've got this world-class CGI
Hey, but do you remember the
team,
last time a game company decided to use their CGI team to make a movie?
Is that Final Fantasy?
This is
Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yep.
and that game looks
literally
spectacular.
Well, I love that movie, by the way. Just
Yeah.
as a side note, I love that movie.
Awesome.
But also, that's literally the thing that turned them from SquareSoft into Square Enix. They
Oh,
had to
wow.
but it killed their company to the extent they had to merge with another one.
But did they also do Advent Children in house?
That I did not like at all.
I really liked Advent.
Yeah, I
I
Children.
really
did
like
not
that.
love Advent
Yeah,
Children.
that
That
was-
was- no,
it
no,
was-
no.
I really liked that one.
Actually, the more recent one they even made. Did you watch that?
No.
What was it called? That
It's
it was
got
like a
knights or
tie-in with.
something.
It was like a tie-in with Final Fantasy 14, 15.
Another one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson was in it.
I
or
watched
something,
that.
right?
That was
What?
Liam Neeson
okay.
was in it?
That,
I think so.
That had amazing CG once again, but
Yeah.
the storyline,
Oh,
dear,
no.
dear
Yeah.
God, dear God.
As someone who writes for video games, video game writing is not good for the most
I
part.
mean, I'd like to think you think you could do better, Nick. I mean,
Well, I try, but
Okay.
it's always up to what the audience thinks, really.
right.
All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time, but we've got some questions here. And this one, okay, I think these were actually sent in for Bex.
Okay.
Yeah,
But there's a
they were
question-
just random questions that I just went to a website that was like, "What's some conversation starter question?"
Yeah, so this is a good one. What's your favorite show you're watching right now?
Favorite show? Oh, probably BoJack Horseman.
Oh,
Really?
Nice.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, man,
I-
that show's good. The
Wait.
writing in that show is absolutely fucking incredible.
It is well written, but it is a bummer to watch.
Yeah, sure. It's like super depressing,
Yeah. Do you
but like,
do you have
okay.
a favorite episode?
I mean, I don't know that I do, but like I said, I'm just talking about the ones I just saw recently. So there was an episode recently that was just literally the entire episode was a single 25-minute monologue.
Yep.
And like
I really
it's
like that.
amazing the degree to which that can be just like hugely engaging. Like you've literally just got a guy like a mostly static scene with just a guy just talking at a camera for 25 minutes, and they managed to make that like unbelievably engaging. Like I was on the edge of my seat
there
watching
are
this thing.
plays that are that and much
Yeah, I mean,
longer.
I guess so, but like,
I've noticed. I think in every season they do this sort of artistic episode.
honestly, every episode has got some kind of gimmick recently.
yeah,
but they're all like really interesting.
There was an episode in one of the previous seasons where no
Yeah,
one spoke.
no one spoke,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
the
literally
underwater
no
one.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, I didn't actually love that episode, honestly. But
I started off hating it, and then I ended
Yeah.
up being like, "This is amazing."
I thought it was okay, but I don't know like the writing is just so clever.
I'm always a fan of shows that try a gimmick and succeed. Like especially because if it's a challenging gimmick, and something that actually adds to the meaning of the piece of content or whatever it is.
I mean, the nice thing in this case is that like they're only doing like they're doing it for an episode and then it goes
Right.
away. You know, it's not like some.
So there's
weird
a Netflix show called, I think it's called The Characters, which
Okay.
was they got 6 or 8 comedians or whatever and said basically you each get a half-hour episode to do of a show. You can do whatever you want with that show. And I think their only real overarching instruction was, you're playing multiple characters. And it's actually surprisingly good. Although a little hit and miss depending on whose episode it is. But the last episode is of this comedian walking around a street playing different characters, inviting people to a house party, and it's all a single shot.
Right.
And it goes for 30 minutes, and he plays different characters. He'll walk into a store as one character, talk to a group of people, inviting them to the house party, and you sort of learn this character and these other characters, and then he walks out and comes in as a different character, talking to a different group of people.
It's weird.
And it works so well. If you have to, you should check it out on Netflix. It's called The Characters. It's the last episode of that season. Dope.
All right.
Here's another question for you. Do you have any ghost stories?
No.
Cool. Well, that settles that. I think I've talked about this in the past, but The Good Place. Anybody watching The Good Place?
I'm not watching the latest season because it comes out once a week. I'm like, I kind of just want to watch the whole thing in one go.
Yeah,
I've gotten like that with
Yeah.
Netflix stuff.
Yeah, that show's great. You should check that out too. What is one of your most defining moments in life? That's an interesting question.
It is in theory, but I honestly don't know. Like when you actually go try to think of something like this, it's like I feel like
Yeah.
you need a pre-prepared answer to really be able to
Yeah.
answer a question like that.
And so I sent you the no.
So yeah, I honestly don't know how I would answer that. I mean, like if you're talking about like technically, it's probably something like the day I met Chris or something like that. You
Right.
know what I
Oh,
mean?
right.
But I don't really
Yeah, yeah.
particularly recall that as a defining moment. So
You don't
That you
remember
shook his
meeting
hand,
Chris?
you knew from
I
then on.
mean, I probably met him on the bus or something. I don't know.
Here's another good one. If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Oh yeah, Bex had one of these.
Oh, did she?
I think Bex answered.
What
What was
her
her
answer?
answer?
Yeah, because I don't remember this, and I was here for that.
Consciousness or something. Something weird.
Okay.
Like
Oh,
I don't know, man.
okay.
I don't know, man.
that.
Here's
I remember
a much easier one.
Ryan's answer was he would want to know how the human race ends.
Ooh. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that going to do for you, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
In a million years, you
Then he
end
can
up
just be
breeding
like,
with
yeah,
this other
okay.
alien
Yeah,
thing.
I wouldn't you love to know the entire history of the human race from beginning to end?
I mean, I'm one of these people who doesn't watch the news. So, like,
Yeah.
I already kind of am not really even that interested in what's happening now,
Yeah.
let alone what's happened in the past or the future.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
like,
That's fair. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'm really terrible at these types of questions, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine.
I remember once I was at a like gaming convention and the reporter came up to me and just said like, "Are you a bad enough dude to save the president?"
What?
And I was just like,
It's a
Yeah,
meme.
I know,
That's an old
probably,
meme.
but I was just like, seriously, when I get confronted with a question like that, I'm just like completely unable to answer that sort of
Bad
thing.
enough, dude.
Like,
Yeah, that's
like
was
because
it a
the problem is
contra or
what
something?
happens is that I feel like in my mind I'm like I need to come up with a clever answer to this.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a clever answer, and then I'm like shit, I can't think of anything clever.
Right.
And, like what I'm saying, I can't really say yes or like no because both of those are terrible. And so it's like, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just, it frightens
Yeah.
me. And then I'm like panicking, like shit. I've got to come up with something clever,
To be fair, in the
Yeah.
current political climate, I don't know that I would want to be.
Right.
I would just, let whatever happens happen.
Okay. See, like that's the kind of, that's the kind of clever answer that I should be able to come up with on the spot, but can't. And therefore I'm terrible at like questions that are so outside my comfort zone that I can't. I panic. I panic.
Fair. That's
I
fair.
panic. I'm panicking.
Okay, well, all right. I've got one. It's not on this list. What video game are you most looking forward to at this point?
That's a really good question.
I know what it is for me. If you're interested,
Red Dead 3.
No, GTA 6.
GTA. No, it's Last of Us 2, obviously.
Oh,
yeah.
Actually, you know what? Good answer.
Yeah.
That's probably you're probably right.
Damn son.
Last of Us 2. Last
Yo.
of Us 2 was right.
Super Smash Brothers. Oh yeah, that game's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm. You've got to play The Last of Us. Man.
I know, I really do.
Last of Us
Shit,
is
man.
really
Yeah, you
good.
do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yep.
All
Mail me a copy of The Last of Us. You can email it to.
I mean, I've got one at home, Nick. You can.
Yeah, I'll probably borrow it.
If you want to borrow it.
Well, we are out of time. Frontseatquestions@gmail.com if you want to send us some questions or just, say things to us. Sometimes we reply, but we always read. At FrontSeatCast is our Twitter handle, so you can tweet at us. Facebook.com/FrontSeatCast. You can send us messages on there. We reply to those. And we've also got a WordPress site, frontseatgamer.wordpress.com. YouTube.com/FrontSeatCast is our YouTube page. Man, we've got so many things at this point. Twitch.com/FrontSeatCast to watch Severn twitching. He loves.
He just sits there and twitches.
Yeah, he's got real bad muscle spasms. We're on Spotify, and you can also rate us on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. Sometimes we find some random podcast app that has like ratings and comments about us. It's pretty neat. We like it. So tell your friends. Jonathan, thank you for coming in.
No worries.
Is there anything you want to pimp out?
I just reached 99.9 kgs.
Nice.
That was a good milestone.
Yeah,
for me.
he's been losing weight like a mofo.
Like that was my actual goal.
99.9 on the dot.
99.9 yeah. two digits.
That's
I think I've been gaining the weight you've been losing.
Right,
So,
okay.
there's something bad's going on here.
Right.
Did you reach your weight gain goal, Nick?
I did several years ago, and just keeps going. All right. Well, we'll be back in a couple weeks, maybe. It depends. We've got 350 coming up, and also I'm going to the US for PS4 Plus Store, so I don't know where I'll be. But
That's cool.
But yeah, we'll be back at some point probably, and I'm sure we'll have Jonathan come back in again. All right. Bye. Year or the year before or something like that.
I think it was like the year before. I think it was like 2 years delayed.
Yeah,
because they made another game in the meantime.
Yeah, they made a whole different game
and he kept
from a
saying
whole
they're
different
gonna
company.
Kept saying they're going to use the profits from that game to fund the game.
You know, whenever someone says something like that, it's a bad thing that's happening. You know, it's kind of like was that like baseball guy who made that studio? 37 Studios, I think it was.
It was. I know what you're talking about. It was.
I'm pretty sure it was 37, wasn't it?
Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yeah, that one. But like that's another case where it's like, oh, let's just make this quick like giant RPG.
The difference
is to make money for our giant MMO we want to, even gianter MMO we want to make.
Well, I mean, APB did the same thing.
Really? Like, APB was supposed to be the smaller game?
Crackdown was made to fund APB.
Really?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. Crackdown was certainly made by the same people before APB, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't made to fund it, was it?
They were used while they were trying to build out their city stuff for APB. They made Crackdown.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Crackdown actually was good though.
Yeah, that's really where
the
people
don't realize like that APB is like one of the biggest flops in gaming history, and yet like people don't really give it the credit that it deserves.
Oh,
because it was such a
absolutely
flop that
know.
no one's really heard of it.
Well, I guess so, but it's like we're talking like more than 200 million was spent on that game. Like that's more like
I don't know that it was more than 200.
No, it absolutely was. I know that for a fact. Like it was absolutely a ridiculous amount of money that was spent for a game that like basically nobody heard of.
Yeah.
Like the best market, like if you have heard of that game, probably the only marketing you heard of was that guy who like tattooed his face.
I reviewed that game.
Yeah.
I reviewed that game for IGN.
See, that's probably why you heard of it.
And I went to their offices. I met the creator of GTA,
Nice.
David Jones,
Nice.
who was working on that game.
Yeah. They spent so much money on that game on the premise it would be as successful as GTA. And like in fact, probably only GTA is like a rival in terms of actual budget that is that's been spent.
Well, I remember they released and then they flopped really fast, right? And then they sort of went back into production
what
and
happened-
re-released it again.
Well, what
No,
happened was
they
they sold
sold
it
the-
for
yeah.
like $1.5 million to another company.
Like Gameloft or something?
No, it wasn't
maybe?
Game Loft. It
That's
was
a
another
deal,
company.
man.
Actually, the people who they sold it to were across from us at PAX when we presented at PAX. So
Game in the name, I know that much.
right. So anyway, yeah, it's sort of
APB
interesting because
Reloaded.
like they, I believe, weren't even able to turn a profit at buying it
Yeah.
for $1.5 million. So yeah, it's not
Really?
yeah.
I thought it got quite popular.
You know, I said that recently because I thought that, but it turns out that was garbage. Chris actually told me about no, they completely failed again.
Gamers First.
Yeah, Gamers First. That was the one. So yeah, I mean that game. It's funny. Like you would think, like as a pitch, MMO GTA sounds like a thing, and I mean in a way it kind of almost happened with like GTA Online.
Yeah.
Not that that's really an MMO, but
I
hey,
think
an online GTA did work. It's just not that. Well, not an MMO, it doesn't
and
work.
APB was in like they were talking about that well before like people were hungry for a GTA Online kind of thing because
Right.
like GTA Online didn't exist at the time.
Yeah. But honestly, I think the greater problem is that people seem to believe that like that the MMO as in the concept of lots and lots of people being able to play in a single place is important when actually it isn't at all. Like it's important to have multiplayer. That's a big thing. But like the concept of like 100 people can go to this location, like whatever, like they're all playing on the same world, that sort of thing, like just seems actually like completely pointless. In
That
my
was
opinion.
I think that came from like World of Warcraft, right? Because it was
Well,
a huge
didn't-
hit.
it came from
and then
EverQuest
everyone
and Ultima and stuff like that. Like that was the thing that they thought was important. But it's interesting because like even World of Warcraft over time moves further and further away from that. And so it's just crazy to me that even still today, there are still people who seem to think that like this whole concept of like you're going to have thousands of people on a server who are going to come together like is important when it really just isn't.
For APB in particular, the MMO aspect was actually really well handled because
Right.
the way it worked, there's 100 people on the server or whatever, but you're only ever you're in your own little group or
Right,
whatever,
okay.
and then they use that 100 people on the server to basically match make an opponent.
Okay. So it was
And-
actually my opinion. I really thought that they were trying to go for the whole like full open MMO style with like thousands of people who you could meet up
No,
with.
and
They really
in fact,
didn't. Okay.
and the fact that was one of the biggest problems with that game was
Interesting.
you have what are actually quite small levels
Right.
in reality with a fairly limited population that they use to just rotate opponents to matchmake against you
okay.
for your objectives. Like it'll be like, okay, this guy and this guy,
Right.
you're the robber, you're the cop, your target is there.
Right. Okay.
And then one of you wins, and then okay, you've won. Now you're matched up against this guy, and your
Right.
target's over here.
I mean, I have to admit, I never played that game.
It was
So,
it's actually it was really fun. The problem was that it's like there's 2 levels, and there's not really anything to spend.
How did they
like,
spend $200 million
that,
on that
that's
game?
really that was the biggest problem is there was all that money went into it, and there wasn't really content to show for it.
Yeah.
The character creation thing was pretty cool.
So
Like,
that I believe they did spend a lot of money on. I heard
That
that
was-
was a big.
that was quite good.
Hence the marketing was around that.
Yes. And the matchmaking was really cool, and the levels that they had were quite interesting. But it was just like you play for like 10 hours tops, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm done.
Right.
And if you're paying like, full price for online multiplayer game with 2 levels, and they promised like a bunch of other stuff to come,
Man, I don't.
but they just
How does it?
shut
I just
down
don't understand how it
servers.
happens sometimes.
200 million is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What is it? Grand Theft Auto 5's 250 million.
Right. But I mean,
Development.
the thing is, that's like way later in time, right? Like
Yeah,
that
I
was
guess-
like time had moved on, game budgets increased, and then even then it's. Still,
Oh yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Factoring in
Like-
inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy when they spent it as well. Like no game cost
Yeah.
that much back when they made that.
Amalur spent a ton of
Oh yeah,
money
they
as
did.
well.
Yeah, they did.
Um,
Although I heard that
Kurt
recently,
Schilling, that was his name.
I heard recently that IP went up for auction actually, and, like including the game servers and everything. Like apparently the game is still like they maintain a live server that is running, so that they can show people who they want to sell that IP to.
Interesting.
So
So
I heard that somewhere anyway.
like a show home.
Yeah,
was
exactly. Yeah, I mean, like
there was a game I don't remember the name of it, but it was like shown off at E3 in like 2004 or 5 or 6 or something like that as like the WoW killer,
yeah.
and it was like an MMO based in Greek mythology, and it had all these cool features at the time, and then whatever company was working on it went bust. Some other company bought it, and it was like a small company, and they were working on this MMO for a couple of years, trying to get it into a state to release it. They released it in like 2011, 2012, and it still looked like a 2006
Yeah, but,
game,
right.
and was horrible.
I don't think I've ever
Like,
seen.
it was so bad.
I don't think I've ever seen an unfinished game be picked up successfully by another company before? Like finished games
Metro
I've seen.
2034.
Wait, hold on. Project Offset.
Project Offset.
Intel picked it up.
Shit, I remember. No, but that was never released though, right?
No, but it was in development.
Okay, when I say successfully, I mean like they released it. You know,
Oh, right. Like once they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there were a few THQ properties.
man, Project Offset was a great fucking graphics demo, wasn't it?
Dude.
Holy
fucking
shit, that
hell.
looked
What was Project
amazing.
Offset?
I don't know.
It was just
They-
this
they
graphics
had
demo they made.
Yeah, they had this orc, and people were like looking at it, and they were like, "Yeah, it's running on current hardware."
That was like GeForce 3 like times, I
It looked
think.
fucking awesome,
when
man.
that-
They had like parallax going on.
And I don't mean like
G.
GeForce 3 like recently. I mean like the original GeForce 3 a long time ago. Like, you know.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like it's just this random thing that this
It was-
graphics demo, but it looked
Okay.
fucking amazing.
Dark fantasy was.
yeah.
Fuck.
I mean
Was
these days it probably wouldn't even look
Right.
that great if
I
looked at
still
it.
think it looks pretty good.
Okay, I haven't seen it in
Did
like
they have like someone with like a
15
bow and
years.
arrow shooting like an orc or something like
Yeah.
that? I think I did see
Yeah,
and
that.
like a dragon that would like curl around.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I did see that. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very cool.
And it was like, oh, this is some new thing coming out soon, and then I never saw anything of it. ever
Yeah,
again.
I was following that real close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Intel picked them up, and then it just died.
yeah.
Shall we have a listen?